Welcome back to Light the Lamp Podcast. This is our first episode in a while. I am your host, Steven. I am here today with guests Sean, Caden, and Will. Today we have a full-on podcast about the recent NHL news, anything that is going on in the NHL world, as well as some PWHL action from one of our co-hosts. So we're going to start off the day by talking about the Four Nations Face-Off, the most recent addition that the NHL did for the break. They went ahead and had four nations, United States, Canada, Sweden, and Finland, all participating, the best players of each of those teams respectively being on the team. Some people disagree on that, and we can even talk about that as well. But just to start off, I mean, Canada obviously took the gold with an incredible overtime win by Connor McDavid. What did you guys think about the championship game? Just to start off with, anyone can start on that.
Yeah, I think it's really special because it was a real big pass of the torch from Sid the Kid to McDavid. Even though McDavid's he's 20.
McDavid's young.
28 at one time, or is he 27?
I want to say
27 or 29. I don't know. I don't think he's 20. I don't know. Yeah, but regardless, I mean,
2017.
He took the torch and he got the game winner, which I thought was really cool. Do you see how old he is?
I mean, yeah, he's 28 years old.
Right.
So 15 years right after the Golden Goal 2 from Sidney Crosby against United States again. It's kind of crazy to me just to see that. And you were saying passing the torch, Will, from Sidney Crosby to Connor McDavid. It's really cool to see those two Canadian stars get something as memorable as that, playing for your nation. I mean, no one expected it to be as great of a turnout, in my opinion, as it was. I mean, you got the references to the Golden Goal during the game, and Connor McDavid, who hasn't really won anything in his professional career in the NHL, is going ahead stepping up for his nation. Anything else you'd like to say about the championship game, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was electric. I mean, you could tell that Canada wanted it more, but there were some great plays on both sides. You're never gonna know what you get with some of these games because when it's the best players in the world, it can go either way. Everyone kind of heavily expected Canada to win, and some people even thought the USA roster was a bit weaker. But even when it comes to Sweden and Finland, they are becoming extremely better. There's huge names all over the place, but still not to the point that U.S. and Canada are at. I just thought it was all over. Just great.
Sean, any thoughts on the championship game, anything like that?
All around great hockey. They were saying earlier in the tournament how it's such a fast pace comparably to normal NHL games, and that was some good hockey. Too bad about the U.S. though. But
How about you, Caden? Any thoughts on anything like
I gotta
that?
say that was the most electric night. Yeah, decade.
Wow, of the
Going back.
That's
I mean, you go back to the 2010
crazy.
Olympics. So the kid gets the goal in the gold medal game. I think that was 2010. That was 15 years ago. Of this decade, this has been the most electric thing in hockey. You can tell it. The passion of the players. They just played harder. It's the best players in the world playing. They want it. They all want to win. They all want to represent their country. This is a huge game. The biggest game of a lot of these players' careers.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot
Easily.
of players saying this is the biggest game of their career. I mean,
Dylan
even
Larkin.
Dylan Larkin said it.
Great quotes.
Even Dylan Larkin had amazing quotes. I mean, even Austin Matthews supposedly, reportedly, had said that it was like a Game 7 to him. And we know how the Leafs have done recently in the Game 7s. I mean, but you have like rosters that are all stacked. I mean, even these countries like Finland and Sweden, they're still getting up there. And I think that Canada definitely was top loaded. I mean, they had stars everywhere, but the United States even had like a well-rounded team. And I think the thing that surprised me the most about the tournament was coming into it, everyone had talked about how Canada had the worst goaltending in the league.
Yup, Jordan Binnington.
And Binnington stood on his head.
And I will say at the beginning of the game before we went out to watch the game, I said
you said he was washed.
I didn't say he was washed. I think he's just very inconsistent. And I mean, he proved us wrong in that crazy run that St. Louis had against Boston.
Yeah.
But he stuck his neck out again. He showed that his very strong personality and hockey skills can win a game and prove people wrong once again. But I will say, back to Caden's thing, most crazy thing this decade, I mean, granted, it was 10 years ago, but I think I might have to say TJ Oshie and
his overtime or his shootout.
His crazy shootout might. I think that still beats it. Even it wasn't the championship game.
Nope.
But I still think that beats it. It's some of these crazy things, and you can bring it to football too. Like, I think one of the craziest games wasn't even a Super Bowl. It was the 13 seconds. RIP our Buffalo Bills. But I think that was at least what I thought the best game of the last at least 5 years. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that had to be at least an honorable mention for the best games.
Definitely an honorable mention. I mean, we also go back through this whole tournament. I think this tournament was a great addition to the league. I mean, I think anytime you have players playing for the nations, I mean, you grow up playing with that program. Like, I think a lot of people really take it to heart. I mean, you have kids going from World Junior Championships. You have kids going from all over on these different things. And just to see the dedication that each of them had during this time, I mean, look at the Kachuk brothers. I mean, first game, they each had 2 goals. And I know, obviously, some people don't like their personality, don't like how they play, but you can't deny that the way that they played, like, they were outstanding. And I mean, you also have Slavin, who had an incredible tournament. You have different aspects. I mean, Team USA playing for Johnny Hockey. And ironically, Will's actually wearing his jersey right now, too. But, I mean, you have, like, this bigger moment, and they even announced the World Cup of Hockey coming back, and players playing in the NA or playing in the Olympics in 2026. Like, I think these moments where it shows your nation, it's really a big thing. And I know, Caden, you're a big basketball fan as well. I mean, having those Team USA teams in the Olympics, like, how do you feel this tournament went for each individual nation?
Yeah, I mean, winning the game, winning the Super Bowl, you're gonna get amazing success. So hats off to Canada. You gotta give it to them. They showed up when it mattered. We beat them on their home turf. They beat us in Boston. It's tough, but you gotta give our hats off to Canada, and it still means a lot, though. America is considered the best nation, and 1B. I think it's a 1A, 1B. You can't say that either nation has a huge gap over the other.
It's definitely very close.
And they always joke about teams, Canadian players, but it's getting to be more equal. I understand. It used to be a big.
It is definitely even.
Well, so one of the biggest things I'd say, like, the biggest, not disappointment, but thing I want to see hopefully change, which I think will in the upcoming years, is it's unfortunate to see only the 4 nations be out there. Like, that's the one thing I liked from, what was it, 2018 or 2019? I don't know what year it was, but when they did the Team North America, Team Euro, I don't know what it was, but for an All-Star break, similar to the 4 nations, but it had all the nations because you see so many good players. We're missing out some of the German players, Czechia players, Russia, of course. That's very controversial, but I think that's something that I'd like to see in the future. But obviously, it's more difficult because these are the 4 nations with, where hockey has grown the most and has been the most successful, let me say, other than, Russia. But the one thing that I really liked is, I mean, everyone knows Finland and Sweden has good hockey players. But, when it was the 4 nations, everyone just thought about USA and Canada. So I think there were a lot of players that really showed pride for their country, like Steve said earlier, but, even just made a big name for themselves. So, like, just on Finland alone, I mean, Armia, he got hurt early. So, I mean, he was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres, so it was I have feelings, but good for him. I wish he was able to play, but Hintz, everyone knows he's a great player, but he really showed up. Line, he wasn't able to play because of his injury, right? Was it?
Yes.
I don't think he.
I think he played a little bit. I could be
I can't
incorrect.
recall. I wasn't able to watch the Finland games. Except for not being able to see Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. That hurt a little bit. But
I think he went. He went. Did he got some reps?
No, he didn't play anything.
No,
Really?
no, did not play anything.
But it's also very tough when you're having great players like Lankinen and Saros. You know, it's tough to compete with that, especially when you're a Sabre. But someone that played very well, Mata showed up. That was kind of funny to me, but it was very interesting. Who was it? Oh my gosh,
Patrick Laine did go ahead and
did?
play. Yes.
Granlund had a very excellent performance.
Yeah. I think when you were talking about injuries specifically, I think a big thing we can also point to, which is in my opinion one of the worst things that has happened during that time, was McAvoy being escorted.
That was huge
for Canada, and it was a huge loss for the USA team. I mean, it's also just a huge loss for the Bruins. Like, losing a guy like McAvoy in the way that you did, where he was rushed to the hospital, like that's
struggling team.
It's an already struggling team. I mean, it just comes to ask, like, is the risk worth it? And I still think players will definitely still play about it. But I mean, like, you have that where McAvoy is a huge loss for the Bruins, and then you have teams like the Washington Capitals, who are one of the best teams right now in the NHL. They had 0 players in that whole league, so they're well rested. But does anyone else have any last thoughts about the Four Nations before we go on to our next topic?
I'm going to say, do we want to see this every year? Absolutely. You know, who's not trying to watch this game?
Yeah, there's conversation to replace the All-Star game with this as like a Four Nations type thing. Any thoughts on that?
Be preferable to the current state of it.
I mean, I think the players want to play for their country rather than their conference. You know,
And
if you can only add more countries, then well, to your point, I totally agree. Just make it bigger and bigger.
You see,
Take an all-star break.
Yeah.
But instead of being just an all-star game or skills challenge, rank the fastest.
I was gonna say, like, remember
You can play some more games because the guys want to play.
That's a great pitch on. Go ahead.
No, yeah, like Kucherov during the skills challenge, not
Last
even
year.
trying, getting booed. Yeah, no,
Yeah, he was just
it'll keep being like that if they don't do something.
Yeah, and then
similar problem in the NBA.
Yeah,
The NBA is just the pinnacle of what you don't want your all-star break to be. It's just a joke. Nobody cares.
Who are the 2 guys that were just tossing the ball?
Yeah, Team Spurs, Chris Paul and
Oh, yes.
They were trying to bend the rules a little bit on the skills challenge. You're supposed to shoot a shot from around the court, and you have 3 chances. If you make it, you move on, or you just shoot all 3. What they did is they just kind of threw the balls up. Shot them. They both did it, and the time was crazy fast.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got
threw the balls a little.
Yeah.
And then they eventually had to qualify for that.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, you got people
3
fights
fights.
three fights in the USA game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 3 fights. That was one of the craziest things. I mean, we all knew that there was bad blood between USA and Canada. All of them had talked about it.
Oh, sure.
But then in the first 9 seconds to have 3 fights, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk starting it off with a huge tilt. And then you go right to Brady and then right to JT Miller. All 3 of those USA stars trying to go ahead and spark something for the team because they knew it was going to be hard playing in Canada, playing in Montreal, in Centre Bell. Like, you knew it was going to be tough playing there. And seeing how it ended up turning up, I mean, I think it was great for the sport of hockey. Yes, everyone is trying to get away from fights, but you still have fans that love seeing that. And the league, I think, wants to get away from fights.
Yeah.
You don't see enforcers anymore, aside from like Ryan Reeves and
Matt
He had a very questionable penalty today. I don't know if you guys saw it.
Well, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But anyone else, any final thoughts on that?
The one last thing I will say is, so with the fights at the beginning, usually you'll see that on like big rivals, like
Montreal, Boston,
Calgary, Edmonton.
Yeah.
Leafs, Boston, anyone against Boston. But
Pittsburgh, Philly, like
it's really cool to see it in a game where this is the first time these players have been on a team together, like all of them together. The first time they're playing against this team with all these players together. This wasn't the championship game that had the 3 fights. This is the first meeting and the first
round robin.
that was planned, and it's like that was really cool to see. And the last thing I'll say is the difference between the All-Star game and this Four Nations is, you'll get players that are unfortunately going to be stuck on a team that's not very good for their entire career. Love my Buffalo Sabres, but we know that's exactly the case. And so these players might be playing for their first real, professional championship after, juniors or college.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just extra motivation. Like, All-Star, okay, that's cool if you win, but it's also like, let me try this crazy move that no one's ever seen before, and it'll be like, oh, goalie's not going to try. This, you got people working their ass off and doing everything they can.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you just have that a little bit more on this, and I think it's a great example. And I mean, as you kind of heard, Will is a huge Buffalo Sabres fan. Caden is a Rangers fan. Sean is a Canucks fan, and I do follow the Pittsburgh Penguins. So speaking on that, why don't we talk about the league itself right now? Today, as we're recording it, it's February 23rd, Sunday. So we've had some crazy games. I mean, Pittsburgh yesterday, starting off the first game with the Washington Capitals, who are number 1 in the league. Again, had 0 players in the Four Nations and were well rested. I mean, you had them play on Saturday to start games back up and instantly went down. Crazy game for those that didn't watch it. Pittsburgh ended up getting annihilated 8-3 at home against the Capitals. It's tough to watch, but that Capitals team, there's something different about that team. I mean,
15 goals in their past 2 games.
Nuts. 15 goals past 2 games. They played today.
Ovi's defying.
And today's win was against.
Today they played Edmonton 7-3. Ovi had a hat trick. Puts him 12.
39 years old.
Puts him 12 goals away from going ahead and tying that record that Wayne Gretzky set.
Well.
A lot of hockey left.
And this is a very interesting year because that's that McAvoy injury. Boston right now, there's still some games going on right now, but Boston is 1 point out of a playoff spot with 1 game or 2 games more played than the current teams in the wild card, which are Detroit with 56 games and Ottawa with 57. Boston has 58 games played. McAvoy did get sent home from the hospital, and he's having a good recovery. I'm not sure what the timeline on that was, if it was released at all, but that is a very good team that we've seen dominate the past few years and, past decade, honestly. And it's not looking well. And, even the entire Eastern Conference as a whole. I haven't really paid attention to the Western Conference much. But the entire Eastern Conference as a whole has just been struggling. Who expected this year for Columbus to be tied for a wild card spot?
Yeah. No one expected it. Columbus, I mean, they were going on a drought for a while, and then they just turned it around. I mean, I think it even started when they played the Panthers at home. I was at that game. And, I mean, that right there, you saw one of the top teams that were expected in the league. I mean, they're right now, where are they placed? Overall, I think they're placed.
Overall, I'm not sure.
I think they're placed 6 or 7 overall, but they're first right now in their in their division right now. They're in the Atlantic. You have a team like the Blue Jackets who kind of came out of nowhere in my eyes, and they're going crazy. Just to see it, that win right there against Florida has changed their whole perspective, but. You still have teams that are up on top. You got Florida, you got Toronto. That's always been there, and
all in the same.
Can never get it done.
All in the same division.
Yeah, you got those two, and Tampa. Gensel's playing there. The Blue Jackets are 1 out of a wild.
Panthers did lose today to the Kraken.
They're in the Metropolitan.
No. The
Panthers are
Panthers
not-
in the Atlantic.
Panthers
I was talking about how the Panthers were on top of the Atlantic. But yes, the Blue Jackets are.
Yes, I called that earlier.
Fourth there by the Devils, Hurricanes, and Capitals,
I will say,
and ahead of my favorite team, Rangers. We're having quite the down year.
I think my team's actually doing the best this year.
dude, you don't even know. Dude, no, we're in the wild card. Oh, that's the first you've heard of it.
Yeah, no, I mean
dude.
our teams are tough. I mean Buffalo's right on the bottom of that Eastern Conference, looking in for the playoffs. But they're
They're on a 5-game winning streak at home.
Yeah, 5-game winning streak at home. I mean, Pittsburgh, my team. I mean, it was nice to see Crosby get a win against his coach in the Four Nations, but we're struggling too. Like
They're still 4 points ahead of Buffalo.
yeah, still 4 points ahead. But I mean, you have a lot of hockey left. But
I don't think it's enough though. My buddy did the math, and it was. I mean, who knows? Because especially with this first half of the year, more than first half of the year, down the drain, the Eastern Conference has been all over the place, like we said. So, maybe we'll see what some sort of miracle that Buffalo desperately needs for their hockey life. But you never know.
yeah, I mean, we can even talk about right now, like our Stanley Cup favorites who we're liking halfway through. It's so hard to tell, but looking at the betting lines right now, Edmonton takes it with
No
the
chance.
best chances at plus 600. Carolina following with plus 700. Dallas with plus 900. I mean, you got these teams. You got the Capitals at like the 5th place right now with plus 1100. You have teams that I really think it's anyone's game. Like anyone can find a way to win. It's whoever's going to be the hot goaltender. Who has like stuck out to you guys this year about who could take that cup?
Yeah. See, this is a really tough question because every single year there's always, there's the President's Trophy curse, but there's also the biggest thing in playoffs that you can talk about with any sport is experience. Like looking at how the year's gone, I'd want to say Winnipeg, but they always get stumped.
They always get stumped. First or second round.
Same thing with Dallas. They always have a bit of a heartbreak.
I like Dallas.
I do like Dallas.
I like Dallas. They always have something.
And they have experience. They have young talent, and they just have that they have that energy. And their fans will show up.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Texas showing up for it.
Robertson. Sagan.
No.
Jamie Benn.
He's
playing strong. I think this year, Dallas beats Vegas in 7. Actually, maybe 6. Because the past few years, I believe it's been Vegas that has taken them out.
Mm-hmm. It has.
I think Vegas, they have their they're a gritty team. They're a slimy, gritty team. But that's what wins playoff hockey. That's what wins playoff hockey. You're not going to see these fancy moves. You're not going to see these fancy passes. You're going to see grimy goals in triple overtime that squeeze through the legs of a goaltender that has 60 saves. And
their goaltenders are still
a great way to put it.
Their goaltenders are still Hill and Thompson, right?
No.
They dealt Thompson away, right? Or
I have not paid attention.
Hill, I believe, is still one of their goaltenders.
Yeah, Hill's there. I know.
One of them got moved, I believe.
I think Thompson got moved.
Sure, Thompson got moved. I'm almost 99% sure.
Because in the playoffs,
because I believe they have Samsonov right now. Ilya.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, I mean, it's
because those playoff runs that they've made. It's those 2 goaltenders turn it up.
Unless, obviously, it's tough to say like conference championships because the seeding and stuff. But I would like to see a Winnipeg-Dallas conference championship. Minnesota has been a sleeper, but I don't think they make it past the first or second.
Fleury's last year.
Dude, that would be a story.
Fleury,
especially for he's a dog too.
I mean, they're sitting at right now plus 3,000 to win. Actually, 1,000 ahead of your New York Rangers, Caden.
New York
plus
the Rangers.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts right now? Who's your Stanley Cup favorite? I know you said you like Dallas.
I do like Dallas. I've always been a Dallas fan, and just like Will was saying, it's got a guy with the goalies. I feel like Audrey always turns it up in the playoffs.
Texas hockey.
Except that 1 year.
Good Texas hockey for that 1 year now. But make the Stanley Cup final. And I thought they were the best team in hockey that year, and I think they really can go back to that form. Look at the Eastern Conference. I do like the Panthers. They are the top of their Atlantic division right now.
They won it last year.
Yeah, the defending champion.
Barely made it.
Sitting in first place. This looks going to be dominant again to that same kind of Florida style of hockey. But I think they always get it done. I think I like the players they have a lot. I think they're a really solid team. Coaching staff is great. And they got some sweet sweaters too,
Oh, yeah, they do.
Absolutely.
Sean, your team over there with Vancouver sitting in a wild card. Sitting in a wild card spot. They're plus 6,000. I don't think they're going to take the cup, but you never know.
Do they even make the playoffs?
But yeah, they're sitting at
I don't know.
points right now. I think they're pretty. Earlier in the year, I thought it was over. I thought it was gone. It was a done season.
Can't count them out.
Trading away JT Miller.
Can never calm them down after the St. Louis Blues came back that 1 year.
Yeah. Who's your favorite right now to win? Who do you think has the best roster to go ahead and take that win?
Vancouver Canucks.
So
That's what I'm gonna-
It's
it's gonna be the Nuggets and Sabres.
I'm thinking probably Winnipeg. They're on a tear right now. But
9-1 in the last 10 games.
yeah, disgusting right
Wow,
now.
I didn't-
40 and
Yeah, I didn't know they really
Yeah.
good. Really good.
Crazy on that.
40 and 14 is wild. Especially at this point in the season.
I don't think they're going to
They're
take
just
the
they seem so good this year.
It's
It's hard to bet against.
It's
Hard,
You can say
it's
that
hard
about
to bet
any
against
team.
them.
The only team that will ever do that, ironically, because they lost this year, is the freaking Chiefs. And I don't think you can ever
I agree.
it's not even smart to bet because then it's like the worst odds for the best team to win. But I can't see it. I would love to see Winnipeg win. It would be the first Canadian Stanley Cup in
28 years. Something like that.
it's a long
Maybe
time,
more.
older than any of us.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with. I'd love to see that because also there was a poll that came out on the teams that players would be least interested in being traded to, and Winnipeg was number one,
Yep.
which is probably the taxes because the fans are crazy there. They are always in it. If you ever watch those whiteout games, in the playoffs, beautiful. But I think that would be awesome because, of course, Buffalo Sabres were number two. It would be great to see people be interested in that, and so I would love it. Connor Hellebuck, incredible goaltender. I'd love to see it, but I think we're also sleeping a bit on the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. The Eastern that's the biggest
Panthers are
thing
good.
is I think this year specifically we have seen like all these teams in the past couple of years have really, really stayed at the top. I mean, you do have like teams such as the Toronto Maple Leafs who always seem to have a great roster and can never get it done in the playoffs. But I mean, you still have teams like Florida and Tampa, both Florida teams. I know we know how the Battle of Florida always goes, and we've seen it in the playoffs too. Like, I mean, even Tampa getting Jake Gensel this year off of a free agency deal after his performance in Carolina. Like, you have that. Carolina's still solid. Washington has come out of nowhere almost, in my opinion. I mean, you have an older team that are still developing players. Like, they're coming out of nowhere. I mean, as we were talking about, Ovechkin, 12 goals away from tying Gretzky's record and had a hat trick today in front of his own son. Like, you have those teams. You have the Devils that are still sticking there. I mean, Jack Hughes has been well. Luke Hughes is even coming up too.
He had 2 goals in a minute 14, I believe it was today.
Yeah.
That was super crazy to see. I will say, I do not think they will make it very far in the playoffs, but I think they will cause a very big problem if they make the playoffs because, as we said, Eastern Conference is all over the place. But right now, in wild card spot 1 and 2 are
Detroit.
Very long. It has been a long time since either of these teams have made the playoffs. Are the Detroit Red Wings and the Ottawa Senators. Very young, very gritty, very strong players that just want to get they don't care how it works. They just want to get the game over with. And, you know, behind them, they have Columbus, Boston, New York. Honestly, Islanders will find a way to lose 40 games in overtime and still make the playoffs. But I think some of these sleeper teams could cause a real problem to some of these big teams, like any of the Florida teams, Toronto, even Washington. I think Carolina and Jersey might stick it out as long as they don't play each other. But these sleeper teams, I think, can be a big problem.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of sleeper teams that you could talk about. I mean, ironically, you have, as you had said, the Washington Capitals. After the game today, Ovi went over and talked to Connor McDavid, and McDavid actually got a picture with Ovi Jr. Both the Ovies right there, which is kind of nice to see. But, I mean, you really have anyone's game. Like, this is a year where I think anything can be possible. Going through it, I mean, does anyone else have any other thoughts on different teams?
Question. How many goals is Ovechkin away from?
Well, we've talked about 12. 12 from tying it, 13 from passing it.
And they are, honestly, even if they're at 82 points right now.
Yeah.
That is, I believe it was the team behind them was 71 points. So they are in a big lead right now. So I think they're guaranteed a playoff spot unless something absolutely crazy happens.
Yeah, I definitely think so too.
So that's, I think it's at 50-something games. So that's still like 30 regular season games and at least 4 playoff games. I think Ovi gets it done this year.
I think so too.
Absolutely crazy to think because he had that injury. He was out for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, he broke
his leg, right?
He broke his leg.
Crazy stuff. And now he's back and he's on the same tear that he's always been. So I think he breaks it this year. And I don't know if I don't know how long, if ever, we'll see someone do that.
I can't see any other player right now in the league sticking around that long.
Not necessarily sticking around long, just
being able to be that efficient.
That. Like some
year
people,
after year.
Yeah, some people argue that Matthews can, but
he's injury prone though. He's injury prone, you know.
Well, you could say the same thing about Ovi. He got hurt a bunch of times.
Yeah,
but I still don't think he's a great player. I think he'll get up there, but I don't think he passes Ovi. But Arden, we'll see what he has in store. We'll see some of these young guys, but we'll see.
Getting any last comments?
I love Connor.
He shoots all weird because he broke his wrist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
He's been pigs and mitts, he had that injury last year. The face, so right over the bubble. But I like him. He's a great player, great young kid. He really works hard. All of his play style. So fun to watch. Electric. I think it's good for hockey, and even though the Blackhawks are so good, I think he's a beacon of the league.
At 41
up and coming star. Upcoming super.
I will put this in. People always, rightfully so, as much as I love them, give the Sabres a hard time. But even after the 13-game losing streak, so the Sabres are at 51 points right now, which is dead last in the Eastern Conference, which is 11 points behind the final wildcard spot. The Chicago Blackhawks are sitting at 41 points, which is 10 points below the Buffalo Sabres. The Western Conference, the bottom of the Western Conference is really, really struggling this year. Once again, we have seen it a couple of times in the past few years. And we're with San Jose, Chicago, Nashville. Nashville's a crazy story for being third last in the Western Conference. But it's,
that's crazy because they were so good last year with Forsling and actually UC turning it up.
And they got oh my God, what's his face? Stamkos this year.
Yeah, they do. They did trade.
They're worse.
Steve, I have a question for you. What do you think about your Pittsburgh Penguins, who are struggling this year.
You know, it's
What are you gonna do? You know, this offseason, someone's gotta go.
It's tough. I was actually just watching Brandon Hagel just had a crazy goal in the Tampa Bay game against the Seattle Kraken. So I got distracted on that. Crazy backhand snipe. I'm sure everyone that's listening.
And it's shorthand goal.
And it was shorthand.
27th of the year.
Insane goal. I had to watch that. But with Pittsburgh itself, I don't know. It's tough, because we've been good for very long. We've been consistent, kind of like the Steelers in a way, where you're always consistent, but you can never go ahead and get it done at the end. And we've had our runs. I mean, obviously, everyone knows the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. But to me, it sucks to say, but we are the oldest team right now in the NHL, with the Sabres being the youngest, I believe. You have two very extremes here. And I mean, we even signed Carlson a couple of years ago to beef up our defense. And you have the core three like Crosby, Malkin, and including Letang. I mean, the three that have been together through everything. You want them to retire as a Pittsburgh legend. You want them to happen. You want to see them finish their career in Pittsburgh. But at what point do you go ahead and sacrifice one of them for the greater good of the team? Because we're not getting any younger. We're not really developing players as we hope. I mean, Poulin, he's playing well, but like nothing that we expected. And it's tough to say, but you have to acquire young talent at some time. Goaltending has obviously been an issue. I have never been a fan of Tristan Jarry. So when he was waived, I was very, very happy to see that. Nedeljkovic, I thought, was very well. Even when he first had his first performance in the NHL with the Penguins, had a stellar shutout, just to say that, last year. And then they came to Buffalo and he had a multi-point game with a goal and an assist, which he officially now has more multi-point games than other creator Paul Bistonet of Spin Chicklets on Barstool, which is sad to say, but I mean, you need better goaltending. That's the first and foremost thing. You have to figure out a way to have someone be that standpoint in net. We all see these top teams with fantastic goaltending. We talked about Ottinger. We talked about Hollebuck. We talked about all these standout goalies. So we need something. That's a lefty still. We need to find our standpoint guy, and once we can find that, I think that's probably our biggest concern right now, is finding that goalie of the future, finding who can man that position, because Jarry was not it. That's why we waived him. I mean, Matt Murray had a couple games here and there, but he wasn't even.
He got injured a couple times, right?
Yep, he got injured, but then we ended up dealing him too. Like, we have these players or these goalies that come in and they play decent, but nothing spectacular. And we need something more consistent on that. So that would be my first take. But it's that core three, and I don't want to break them up. I really don't. And I would rather see them retire as a Penguin. But when you have that many old players, and you had Jeff Carter last year, obviously retired, but you had the oldest team still in the league, and we know this league is not getting any older. Like we talked about Connor Bedard, Caden, how you're a huge fan of him. Like, you have these young stars that are coming up, and you have these young guys that are playing to the level that you expect. I mean, the Sabres, even as a young team, and some people say they're not developed yet, you have these young players that are coming up. The Amherst.
Number one in the league. Devin Levi, back-to-back shutouts.
Number one in the league. They just were officially made it into the playoffs. They just solidified their spot. Like,
did they really?
Yes, they just did.
Didn't even see that.
They just solidified their spot. Like, you have these young teams that are coming up, and the Sabres are known for trading away talent to a team.
We're the fun team in the NHL.
Yeah, but like, to me, I think it starts off with goaltending, and then as much as I don't want to break up that big three, I feel like someone's got to retire, or you have to deal someone. Carlson, as much as I loved him on the team, I think he hasn't been performing to what he was.
Except in Four Nations.
Except in Four Nations. I think he might have to be dealt, unfortunately.
Who will take him, though?
That's the thing. The contract is so much. We have to get younger. It's gonna suck at some point, but we all knew that a rebuild was gonna be necessary. And we just locked up Crosby and Letang. I don't think you can get rid of Crosby, and I don't want to get rid of Malkin either. He has been my favorite player on that team, but something's got to happen. And I feel like we can't deal Carlson. We might have to start dealing away a player such as Malkin, even though he's been a standpoint on that team. Same with Crosby. Same with Letang. We showed that we weren't afraid to get rid of talent when we got rid of Gensel. But Gensel was even up and coming. That really hurt because he was young.
He was still young.
He was coming up.
Youngish.
Yeah, young.
He's like 28, right?
Yeah,
I think he's 29.
yeah, somewhere around that realm. But like, we had these guys that are
It's
coming
not
up.
35.
No, exactly. Like, we have to get younger, and it sucks. And I think Pittsburgh knows after missing the playoffs last year. I think we know that a rebuild has to be coming. And it's going to suck, and it's going to be a long time before we start getting back on that place. I mean, we're second to last place right now in the Eastern Conference. The only team lower than us is the Buffalo Sabres. Like, we have to do something, and you don't want to get rid of the big three, but you can't just keep dealing all these middle-end players and keep that top. You got to find young talent. That's the biggest thing. It's just where are they going to find it?
Yeah, like I was going to say, I mean, you brought it up with the Erik Karlsson. I think that's the real big thing that drags down this team is that huge contract. And it's still a situation like Karlsson, it's not like he's, a young guy. He's an old guy. When it comes to his trade value, that's where I'm concerned because, people aren't going to give up a lot because Pittsburgh also can't retain that much because you guys are in some big salary shambles right now. So, you can find a team that has a lot of cap space, like Buffalo, but they're not going to take Carlson. Who else is down there in cap space? Probably Utah. They're not going to take him.
Yeah.
It's tough because these teams that can afford to take him are not trying to get a really old guy. Like, they want veterans, but not that heavy of a veteran. Like, Sabres, of course, my bias example. We took up Zucker, gave him $5 million. A lot of people were very questionable about it, but he is on a shred. He got 3 assists the other night, and he is having one of his better career years.
Former Penguin.
Yep. $5 million was a lot for a lot of Sabres fans who have cap, but $11.5 million for still a few more years is, what's it going to take? Is that a future considerations trade if they take all of the money, or is that, you dump some of it, or do you even think it's going to happen? Because I can't see a contract termination.
I can't see it happening.
Because I think he's still too good to be contract termination.
Yeah, I don't think that anything's going to come of it. I don't think that there's going to be a team that's going to want to trade for it. But I also think he does deserve the contract. Like, he's played so well his whole career. But I mean, it's just when you're getting up in age, like he needed a big contract, and Pittsburgh was willing to give it to him. And it's almost like we're almost like a retirement home now for all these players of how old we are. But I mean, that's in my opinion, the biggest concern. Like with the Rangers, for example, like you guys had a pretty big rebuild last year, got all the way up to the conference finals, and then failed to execute there in the end. I mean, I think we need to follow your guys' path of finding a goaltender that can stay us.
Yeah, Chesty is a GOAT. He's basically we got really good offensive weapons there. It's a sound team, and we saw that last year. The Rangers are a really sound team, just missing maybe a couple of pieces in depth, which I just think it means that we did so exceptional last year. We're ahead of schedule. It's exciting to see that we're able to produce at such a high clip. It gets down here, but I think it just takes that depth piece to reload. It's not really a rebuild anymore; it's just a reload. Get right back up to where you wanted to be.
Now, do you
conference finals? Hopefully to the finals.
Yes, sir. Now, do you have an idea of necessarily what you think is the down factor? What would be needed for that reload to be, successful and not just turn into a what's going on. Like, you see Capo Caco get dealt off to Seattle, and he's doing very well right now. He's been on his best since he got traded. He's just been scoring a lot, getting points all over the place. Like, is there Truba's gone too now? Do you think it's a locker room thing? Do you think it's a coaching thing? Do you think it's just like in their heads? Like what?
I think Steve Penguins know you can't be too old, so they want to rotate players in and out to keep a fresh. Keep trying to see what's going to work. There were some big names. I did like those players a lot. And I'm sad to see them go. I'm happy to see them do better elsewhere. Seattle Kraken's a cool young team.
Oh, yeah.
The new expansion franchise.
Exciting.
Super cool over there. So you got to be happy for them. But at the end of the day, just want our guys to. We got to rep. We're trying to develop our young talent. Hit on our draft. This offseason. Even if we don't make the playoffs anymore, we definitely can. And I think if we get into the playoffs, we can absolutely make them. We have the goalie, we have the offense, we can do it at a high rate.
Yeah.
Just talk about consistency, night in, night out. You got to keep executing that every single time. If we can string long enough wins, sneak in that wildcard spot, I think it would be a tough matchup for some of the higher seeds. It'd be a little upset alert.
And even though that, like you said, Shesterkin is the guy, and he will be, because after that huge $11 million 8-year contract, I believe 11.5 for 8 years, I think it was. He's the guy, and he has to be. And hopefully, for your sake, it doesn't turn out like the Carlson contract, which is very similar to that, if not like exact. But I think Shesterkin is still the guy, and he got pulled last night against the Sabres after letting in 5 goals in the first period. But I think he still is sitting at like a .909. I think that's the number they threw. 0.9 something. He's over that. He's sitting with a good, average. And after that, I still, even though he's on and off year, I think there's still there's different problems. He's not the problem at all. It's that contract going to bite you in the butt when you're going to try to deal or get new players.
And you guys still have Quick too, right?
Yeah.
The second.
Who
He's
has been
a great second goalie.
He just passed Ryan Miller for the most
all-time wins by an American-born goalie.
first, but he deserves it. He's an incredible goaltender. It's
longevity. Yeah,
it's all there
in the league.
He's been there forever.
He's been down.
He's still
He's
good.
been down forever.
Yeah, he's great, but who knows how long he'll stick around. He's on a friendly contract, I believe. But it's it's the offense that's missing out. Panarin should be doing well. Zibanejad, he has his, he's Zibanejad. He did great in the 4 Nations. No surprise, but it's some of the other guys like Chris Kreider. He's on a huge down year, and I'm a bit salty on it because I think Tate should have gotten his spot in the 4 Nations. But even Kreider, he scored in one of the 4 Nations games. So it's crazy to see because you see these guys succeeding. Granted, they're on one of the best rosters you'll ever see, but they're still succeeding. So what is New York's problem?
Well, it's interesting to say that because we actually had a pretty big trade between Sean's Canucks and the Caden's Rangers with JT Miller, and the Rangers played the Penguins today, beat us 5-3. JT Miller had a great goal, and I think that helps your offense. JT being a former Ranger, Sean, do you think that helps the Rangers find some of those solutions that can help them maybe contend for the playoffs, maybe contend for a cup?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I was a little disappointed when I saw that trade because Canucks need him just as much as they do, for sure. But no, it definitely helps the Rangers that they have him. He's so dangerous. He can score 2 goals a game sometimes, like he did with us. And he brought us into the not conference finals, but the second round playoffs. Almost beat the Oilers last year. So
yeah, I could not believe that Edmonton stuck out.
That was probably their toughest series, Edmonton, along the way, other than, of course, the finals.
Yeah, but they even crawled back in that. They crawled back to Game 7. They were down 4-0.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on the league? Otherwise, I want to touch on 2 other things right now. I think we've kind of gone over our playoff expectations, what we're seeing this year, what we hope our teams itself can kind of do to benefit through the remainder of the season and onward into the offseason whenever that comes. Just quickly, I wanted to touch on this. With the LA Strong game that's going on currently right now, for those listeners that do not know, LA Strong is a charity for the wildfires that have happened in LA. We all give our thoughts and prayers to everyone affected by it. But they are doing a charity game where they're inviting a bunch of different celebrities. I know Will Ferrell's there, Snoop Dogg's coaching.
Huge LA fans right there.
Huge LA fans. They're even having some of the first responders playing in the games.
Really?
And they're kicking off right now, and they're playing some different games. Again, our thoughts and prayers to everyone affected. But you have players such as PK Subban, who just ended up dropping the mitts in one of the first games, and then Justin Bieber's out there playing too, and he even dropped the mitts. Like, you have these stars that are coming through and really showing off. And it's a whole big fun charity thing. You can donate to fires. Your opinions happening. LA
Really rusty to the fan.
That's not a new surprise.
Well, the
Ronald, regardless, it's together.
with these boy players, you got Mark Messier's playing too.
Oh.
Like, you got a bunch of these guys that are coming out there strapping on the skates one more time for a good cause. So donate if you can. Obviously, we're all in this together, all as one, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what nation you're part of. We're all in everything together. Snoop Dogg is doing great at commentating as a coach, so I hope to see him commentating a little bit more. We all know he's a huge hockey fan.